the Honorable Prime Minister of St. Martin, Silveria Jacobs. ESF 5 Coordinator and Chief of Police, Carl John. ESF 10 Coordinator and Secretary General of the Ministry of Tourism, Economic Affairs, Transport and Telecommunication, Miguel De Weaver. Secretary General of the Ministry of Education, Culture, Youth and Sport, Shadmina Powell. Head of Collective Prevention Services, Eva Lista De Weaver. Members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. I'm Rolika Roach, and welcome to this broadcast on behalf of the Prime Minister of St. Martin regarding an update on COVID-19. For more on this subject, I invite the Prime Minister of St. Martin, the Honorable Silveria Jacobs, to address you. Prime Minister.
Thank you very much, Ms. Roach. Good evening, people of St. Martin. Good evening, members of the press. Good evening to my panel of the EOC related to COVID-19. Today, as Prime Minister and Chair of EOC, I update you as per usual when there are new developments. This morning, an emergency address was done to ensure that rumors would not take place in a sense that will be detrimental to our society, albeit that was done with factual information and asking for adherence to, in terms of respecting the privacy of persons. I understand that there are still social media shares and other WhatsApp messages being sent, identifying or trying to identify at least who the COVID patient is. I believe that that is in poor taste. This is something that would actually discourage others from calling CPS who may be in need of assistance, who may be in need of a test, and I believe that this should be wholly discouraged. Something cannot become viral if you do not share it. Think for a moment, if it is someone that is your person, think of it as someone that you love and care for, while there is no stigma or shame attached to being considered positive, through no fault of your own, you can also easily contract such a virus. As a matter of fact, when there was Zika, when there was dengue, etc., which also ran rampantly through St. Martin, persons were not ashamed to say, I have such and such a virus. So I really would like for the general public to, as good Christian beings, to think of your fellow man and do unto others as you would have them do unto you. I would like to update on some of the facts as I have been trying to bring them to you as a responsible person in this case. As of today, March 17th, we have announced already this morning, but I reiterate that as of tomorrow, March 18th, Wednesday, schools will be closed. Schools will be closed for 2 weeks up until 1st of April 2020. During this time, evaluation will be taking place. The situation analysis will continue on a daily basis, and if this will continue, you will be apprised of such in a timely fashion. The Safety and Emergency Management Committee, SEMC, of the Ministry of Education, Culture, Youth and Sport held an extraordinary meeting this morning with school boards and the Division of Public Education on Tuesday this morning at 10 a.m. The sole agenda point being COVID-19 and continuity of education. Many school boards had already started to work on their plans based on previous communications with this entity, and during the meeting, they were given until the end of this week to finalize such and submit it to the SEMC. Of course, school boards will be making arrangements with their teachers and staff in order to finalize such plans while students are not in school. School boards indicated that they also plan to utilize various means to deliver instructions such as online platforms, paper folders with assignments, lesson guides with books, etc. Some school boards also indicated that they had already given training to their teachers on utilizing various platforms. Other school boards will be carrying out trainings in this time to ensure that teachers can easily communicate with their students, albeit from a distance. The Ministry of Education, Culture, Youth and Sport also shared that they were already in discussions with Bureau Telecommunication and Post, which is the regulatory body for not just telecommunications, but also for internet. School boards, and this is regarding internet connectivity, because to be able to be properly offering online services where school is concerned, you have to be able to ascertain that the public that requires it has access. So schools are also assessing the availability of internet with their students to be able to receive instruction and education guidelines online. School boards were requested to submit key information to the MECIS team to facilitate further discussions with BTP, UTS, and TELEM. It is the intention to commence with the education from home on March 25th. School boards are also continuing with their meetings internally to properly prepare for the continuing education of exam candidates at both primary and secondary levels. This information is in order to allow parents and students to rest assured that government, together with their school boards, are doing everything within their power to ensure that students can continue to learn, and technology being something that all our students are quite adept at, we then encourage them now to not just use their smartphones for fun, but also now for education. As an educator myself, I can also tell parents, if the possibility doesn't exist for your child to have online learning via the school, there are several free online programs. You can also contact the department, the Division of Exams, to get the St. Martin accredited courses that can be followed on the internet, online, and thereby ensure your student is able to continue with his or her education. Another point I'd like to make is that all school boards, public, private, as well as subsidized schools, were involved in these meetings. And if there are any further questions after the press conference, the SG of the Ministry of Education, Culture, Youth and Sports is present to answer any further questions. I'd also like to update on the travel restrictions which have been, let's say, amplified or minimized. They have been adjusted to reflect that as of 11:59 midnight on March 17th, that is tonight, 2020, passengers are not allowed to enter St. Martin. This restriction does not apply to residents of St. Martin. However, residents of St. Martin booking flights to come home should be able to prove that they are residents of St. Martin. Thereby, they should have proof of residence, which can be a St. Martin driver's license, a St. Martin ID card, or a St. Martin registration document. Students, therefore, who are registered in the Netherlands and do not have such a card would have a hard time getting on a plane. At the moment, I would like to discourage, right now, KLM has instituted 2 flights on the 20th and the 22nd. Flights came in today, however, no passengers were allowed as they were not furnished with any crew members. As long as there are no crew members on board, there will be no passengers allowed. So based on the fact that we as government are trying to restrict passengers from coming into the island, KLM has taken or had taken up until today this hard, let's say, decision not to bring passengers in. However, passengers are now able to also continue to make plans for the 20th and the 22nd. And I would like to encourage all those who are trying to leave the island to do all within their power to make arrangements to be on those 2 flights to the Netherlands. After Sunday, March 22nd, there will be no guarantee of inbound flights, which would then be necessary to have outbound flights. The registration does not, at this moment, apply or at any time apply to outbound flights. Once the airlines themselves have decided to stop flying to St. Martin for commercial reasons, then the only way persons still on the island would be able to get out is through chartered flights. So flights will be allowed to come in to retrieve passengers. However, we would not be allowing after Sunday any passengers to enter, not even St. Martin residents. When we are talking about restricting entry, each St. Martin resident that enters now will have to be on a mandatory quarantine at home, remain at home for 14 days, and you should be prepared to do so. We are taking the necessary steps to be able to take consequences or take measures if you break the mandatory quarantine at home, or then we may have to then quarantine you where you wouldn't like it, in terms of it would appear to be prison to you, honestly speaking. From persons who have been in quarantine before, I understand it is quite trying, but trust me, it is easier to do in your own home than in a hospital facility or any other facility we might deem to quarantine you at. The restriction also does not apply to the crew. So of course, airline crew is allowed to fly to St. Martin, and it does not apply to passengers who are specialists with evidence of traveling at the invitation of the government of St. Martin. So this would mainly be for technical, medical, and special assistance necessary during this COVID-19 crisis. Also noteworthy to mention is that there will be continued flights between Saba, St. Eustatius, St. Martin, and Curacao to facilitate the persons, especially on Saba and St. Eustatius, and to facilitate, of course, medical transfers to Curacao, which at this moment is our only option for medical transfers. I have no further updates on our confirmed COVID-19 case, except to say that we are still awaiting the second positive to be able to definitively say that this person is a confirmed COVID case. That is the rule. You must have 2 tests done, and it has already been sent. We have had 1 result. We are still awaiting the second result, and this is another reason to enforce confidentiality, for if that second test comes back negative, then the whole process will have to start again, and it is possible that the first test may have been a false positive. This is another reason that we do not want to divulge identities, and it is up to the person themselves, because we have noted in the international media that internationally known basketball players, etc., have come out and stated plainly that they have been infected by the virus, that they are doing well, that they are recovering. So, as I mentioned earlier, there is no stigma, there is no shame. We are all susceptible, and we pray that, in fact, that it will be a false positive. But of course, if it isn't, our patient continues to self-isolate and is being monitored by CPS. We wish the family much strength. On the update pertaining to business closures, I will turn the mic over, with your permission, to the SG of TIAT, Mr. Miguel De Wever, representing ESF 10.
Thank you, Madam Prime Minister. Basically, the non-essential services are those businesses that will not allow to be open starting tomorrow. And the purpose of the regulation for non-essential businesses have been identified as businesses that present the most risk to the country in the ability to manage the spread of COVID-19. Firstly, in educational institutions, which, with the exceptions of classes that can be given remotely or e-learning possibilities, those are allowed. However, the following are not allowed: daycare centers, early childhood development and institutes, all schools, universities, training facilities, the library. Retail goods, retail stores such as clothing, jewelry, and souvenirs, sales outlets, and shopping centers. Vending stalls at the Phillipsburg Marketplace. Meeting and events, conference facilities, outdoor establishments that accommodate events. Recreational activities, casinos, whether it be standalone or hotel-based, those are not allowed to be open. Nightclubs and other dance establishments, adult entertainment establishments, art galleries and other exhibition halls, recreational centers, the cinema, the movie theater, businesses offering recreational activities such as zip lining, boat trips, quads, etc., and certainly not limited to. Gyms and other indoor and outdoor sports facilities, museums, hair and nail salons, and barbershops. Restaurants are allowed to open, but only for delivery and takeout services. No dining at any restaurants, even if it is on a hotel property. Though they restrict the businesses that are not allowed to open. And the issue of food security, Madam President, yes? We also want to re-emphasize that there's no need for the panic buying. We are in constant contact and communication. We have a WhatsApp chat group. We are informed if there's panic buying, if there are problems with supply, and to date there isn't any problems, there aren't any problems. The supply and the transportation as well is not a problem. They have indicated that to us. We are even going into actual discussions, further discussions with them to actually see, that to make sure that they don't have any problems with the supply of their goods. So again, there's no need for the panic buying. Everyone has our social responsibility. Buy what you need for the 2 weeks, and the supermarkets will remain open. So I think we must emphasize that as well. They're not going to close. Those supermarkets will be allowed, just like on the front side. Supermarkets, grocery stores will allow to be open.
Thank you, SG DeWeaver. Prime Minister.
Thank you, Ralaika. Thank you, SG DeWeaver. I would like to add that besides the panic buying that is taking place as grocery stores, that there is also a panic going on at pharmacies. Again, there is no restriction within our travel restrictions. It's for persons. There are no restrictions for goods to be able to arrive to the island. Cargo flights that are bringing goods, as well as vessels, seafaring vessels that do their normal shipments, will be allowed to come to the island, have never stopped, and will not be stopping unless something happens at the source. St. Martin will never ever stop food from entering our shores. We have taken all precautions. We have ensured that food is on the island and that orders, Mr. DeWeaver has assured me with the wholesalers that the orders that are pending will be able to replenish whatever runs out in a normal basis. However, if we continue to panic shop, it will run out much faster. So we're asking the general public, especially since we are trying our best at this moment to not just close off COVID-19 and having new patients enter and therefore infect more persons within our society, to minimize your movements. These closures that have been announced are mainly to minimize your movements within the community. There is no restriction on you. You are allowed to move, to go to the beach, to go and have a wonderful time with your family, especially now that you may have more time to do so. Look on the bright side of it and spend quality time with your family. However, you should avoid large gatherings, and you should continue to exhibit good hygiene practices, washing your hands often, and refraining from touching your face. This is the only way in which the virus can enter your body, is through the open parts of your face, your eyes, your nose, your mouth. Refrain from touching your face with dirty hands or unclean hands. And we are constantly with the phone in our hands. I would like to ask people to, as often as you clean your hands, clean your phones, your cell phones, your keyboards that you are constantly using, etc. And this is especially for the children as well. I mentioned that there is sufficient food. We know that with several persons, the panic will be that I am out of a job, And therefore, I'd like to also put at least your initial fears to rest. It is a serious threat for St. Martin, and therefore it has the attention of the EOC. We are in discussions also with a strategic group to present a stimulus plan which would assist businesses to be able to retain their employees. This would have a great effect. We already know after Hurricane Irma that the training facilitation program that took place between education and labor, that is something we're looking at taking over a larger spectrum of businesses. And not only that you're then stuck with one location to be able to have trainings, but to be able to have trainings on the job. So businesses that are now having less business or having less traffic would then be able to utilize their businesses as actual training grounds to improve our services, to improve the competencies and skills of our population. The awareness, which is under the responsibility of ESF 8, will continue, and in fact, hopefully you will see that it becomes even more intense. Public service announcements will continue on public radios, on, of course, the government radio station 107.9, as well as through our Facebook page and website. The Department of Communication is constantly updating the Facebook page as well as government's website, and the broadcast will be soon heard, if not already today, in other languages besides English. The recordings for Spanish as well as Creole have been done, and those persons who may not have been able to follow the English broadcast will also be able to do so at this time. Community development, which falls under ESF 7, has also had several key meetings with churches and will continue to do so in the coming week with community groups to ensure that we are able to identify vulnerable groups in the community so that we can mitigate anyone feeling desperation or resorting to actions that could result in crime. So at this time, I believe I have touched on most of the points that were highlighted in our latest EOC meeting. If there, of course, is any other information, this will be added in the written report, which will be published as well. And I now open the floor for questions.
Thank you, Prime Minister. As the Prime Minister mentioned, the floor is open for questions. For the question and answer purpose, of course, we have Ms. Mei Ling Chung, the Director of Tourism, who is also here to answer any questions the media may have. Mr. Wendell Moore of Seymour Journal, you have the floor.
Good evening, Prime Minister. Just one question in regards to...
Mr. Moore, can you ensure your mic is on, please?
I think it is. Okay. Madam Prime Minister, just one question in regards to the travel restrictions. You're saying that residents of St. Martin are not allowed to travel to the regional Caribbean islands as well?
Yes. As of today, from Saturday, our restriction was that international visitors from a host of countries in Europe, all of the countries in Europe, the ones in China, etc., were not allowed to come in. As of today, and the USA and Canada. As of today, the restrictions are now also for the Caribbean region. So as of today, at the end of today, 11:59, only St. Martin residents are allowed to travel to St. Martin. Only St. Martin residents. So from wherever they may be. And I've also stated that it is my intention to also close that window on Sunday, because we would like to eliminate the possibility that on a daily basis, if you're going to say we're closing, the French side and the Dutch side are collaborating in this. And so on Sunday, residents of our island will have the last opportunity to come home for 2 weeks. We will evaluate if we are able to contain properly what we have within the island and avoid any further spread. We can slowly move towards reopening our borders to the outside world. But this way, we are at least able to ensure that our internal borders remain open, so there is no restriction of movement of our people throughout our island. However, we are discouraging excessive movement as well as gathering in groups.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Are there any further questions from the media?
Yeah. Secondly, can you tell us exactly what's the definite time that this restriction would be in place and if it is likely to change?
The thematic, what I read was our message that goes out to the thematic. The Ministry of Justice sends that message once the thematic, which is for flights as well as vessels to come to the country. It's for all of the entities outside of us and us as well. So we would know, for instance, whatever St. Kitts, Nevis, or any other country is saying in terms of who's allowed. Therefore, when someone comes to St. Martin's counter at PGIA to check in, you will already see a pop-up that a person wants to go to St. Kitts, you cannot. So persons that want to come to St. Martin will know that they cannot once this is sent out, and it has been sent out already. So it will be updated as of 11:59 tonight.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Any further questions, Mr. Moore?
Mr. DeWeaver, please. Can you tell us, Mr. DeWeaver, how you plan to enforce such closures? Do you have a plan?
Let me add one more to the list that I overlooked, which was the bars. The bars also have to close. They will not be allowed. Of course, restaurants sometimes have places where a bar, but again, there was no dining in the establishment. The enforcement will be done in collaboration with the police as well as our economic controllers.
Thank you, SG De Weaver. Are there any further questions, Mr. Moore? Mr. Cerulean? As there are no further questions from the media, the floor is closed. I will allow each EOC member to provide closing remarks, and then that will be the end of the broadcast, starting with the SG of the Ministry of Education, Culture, Youth, and Sport, Ms. Sharmina Powell.
Thank you. I really want to say to our stakeholders in the sector, education, culture, youth, and sport, that we're extremely proud of their response towards this very challenging time. We have had several meetings prior to even this situation occurring. We have rolled out our safety plans, not knowing that this would happen, but we are very confident from our meeting this morning that our stakeholders will work and they're responding to the best of their ability. So we're really looking forward towards rolling out the plans so that the students will be engaged in learning at home. And I want to also emphasize the fact that we are asking parents support, parental support in this process. And I believe that this is probably a good opportunity for family engagement as the learning process takes place with the students who are their children as such. So we want to really thank them for the continuous efforts, and we know they're working tirelessly at working out the communication plans as such. Thank you very much.
Thank you, SG Powell. Head of Collective Prevention Services, Mrs. Ava Lissa De Weaver.
Good evening, everyone. I just wanted to reiterate a couple of points that the Prime Minister alluded to. I think first and foremost, we have to remain calm. My team is working diligently on the case and the necessary next steps. I also will encourage, again, everyone to refer to the hotline, which I know there were some hiccups in the beginning, but the hotline is now active. So you can dial 914. Anyone experiencing signs and symptoms, again, stay home, contact your GP, don't go to the hospital because we don't want to overwhelm the health system. But also just to reiterate the fact of, keeping your family at home. As the Prime Minister said, enjoy this time while you can with your family. Just everyone keep healthy and safe, and we will overcome this time.
Chief of Police, Carl John.
Thank you. The police force will be implementing all the measures of government with all justice partners. Naturally, it will be based on a zero tolerance policy. Means that there will be sanctions issued by the public prosecutor's office when there's non-compliance. And naturally, if there's non-compliance, you are violating the general police ordinance. And based on that, we will be enforcing strictly all measures of government. But still, the police force and all justice partners are asking everyone in the community, please cooperate. And it's for the wellness of the whole community and has nothing to do with crimes, but the health of everyone in this community. So that's why we are really asking for everyone to cooperate and implement all measures.
Thank you, Chief Carl John, Secretary General of the Ministry of Tourism, Economic Affairs, Transport, and Telecommunication, Miguel de Weaver.
Thank you. And what I would like to say in closing is a couple of remarks. One, the list that we have presented tonight is the list of those businesses that are not allowed to open tomorrow. The Honorable Prime Minister has just whispered in my ear and said, we have to take off the library. So we will do that. And then the list will also be, on the DCOM's website tomorrow. We will have the longer list of the businesses that are allowed to open. So we just didn't want to go through that very lengthy list. You will see that on DCOM's website tomorrow. So that will be there. And I think the primary purpose, I know we will have some, let's say some persons may disagree with some of the businesses on the list, whether it's for opening or closing, but the idea with this list is health comes first. Prevention of the spreading is paramount of importance, and that's the way in which we have gathered, and of course some synchronization with what the French side did, so that we don't have, when they're closed and ours is open, then we have more people coming on our side. So, but in the end, we ask persons to remain calm. We don't want any runs on the supermarkets. Shop for the regular shopping that you would normally do for 2 weeks, and everything will be fine. And I'd like to pass the word on to.
Thank you, SG de Weaver, Director of Tourism, Mei Ling Chun.
Good evening, everybody. Just in closing, as we all know, tourism is all of our business, and it involves all of us, directly, indirectly, however you see it. Rest assured, we are diligently working. Our STB team, the St. Martin Tourism Bureau team, is working diligently with all our stakeholders and on a daily basis, busy with the hotels and communicating with the airport and the airlines, which has been very challenging, and we know that, but we're working on it and assessing in order for us to get everyone out. So this will continue, and the questions, please have them keep coming. We have received today from the airport, after their meeting with the airlines, an updated schedule, and that will be also updated as new let's say flights are updated or coming in. So rest assured, we are going to continue working on doing what we have to do. It is trying times, we all know that, but we have to stay positive, and as the Prime Minister and our SG said, let's stay calm and make sure that we are able to do what we have to do for all of us to stay safe, and our visitors as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Chun. Prime Minister Silveira Jacobs.
Thank you once again. I'd like to, first of all, thank all of the EOC members, the coordinators, and their members for the hard work that they're doing. I don't think most can even begin to estimate the amount of man hours that they have put in thus far. And basically, you could say it only now is getting started for us. We have been blessed thus far. We will continue to feel blessed and be faithful in the sense of being prepared, doing everything within our power to make our public aware of the perils of this virus, but also to make them aware that if we look at the statistics properly, that it is mainly vulnerable groups, which are the elderly, that have been succumbing to this virus. So what we are asking the general public to do, I forgot to mention in the update from the health department, is that to adhere to the notices of the St. Martin Medical Center and the White and Yellow Cross, because persons who are already ill are even more susceptible to the virus. So even though you love your loved one, it is better that you do not be in contact with them if they are ill at this time. So the already ill person or persons with suppressed immune system or respiratory issues like asthma should not be in contact with large crowds or too many people. So this is an opportunity to do a bit of self-isolation, try to make arrangements to do work from home. The internet in this case is your friend. I would like to advise and encourage the general public to utilize, whether it is Skype, whether it is Facebook chat, whether it is all of the apps that you can use to chat. You can also use this for meetings. You can use this to work. You can actually use this to communicate with your children when you are away from them. So communicate with your loved ones who are in hospital or at the White and Yellow Cross, the St. Martin Home. Stay away. At this moment, they have issued that they will not be receiving visitors for the seniors. In as much as company is good for them, the company that is infected is not good for them. And if one person is infected at the White and Yellow Cross, then it becomes a serious issue. And though we might not have a lot of cases, then we will surely be able to expect that we would have a high death toll. We do not want that. These measures are being put in place in order to mitigate the spread. If there are less people moving around, there's less chances to spread. And if we have more cases, then we are easily able to then track and trace their movements to then be able to eliminate who may or may not also have become infected. All these measures are being taken with the interest of the safety and the security of the people of St. Martin in mind, and I am asking you for your own good and for the greater good of the community to exercise proper hygiene measures and maintain proper social distancing. Social distancing was explained already today, and some people find it difficult, but I already noticed that people are not insisting to hug and kiss anymore. So we are getting there. Refrain from shaking hands, hugging, kissing, touching persons that you are just coming into casual contact with. I'm not saying don't do it with your family, but when you do, ensure that you've washed your hands, and they have as well. A tip for those persons is when you enter your home, and this was something, I'm being a bit casual now, that as a teacher, one of my fellow colleagues told me, all these children touching you at school, when I get home, I don't touch my family without removing all my clothes, washing my hands and face, and even sometimes having a shower. So you're bringing everything from outside into your home. So that is what I would advise persons to do before going onto your bed. Remove your shoes at the door and, change clothes before bringing everything that you have gotten in contact with outside into your home. Another myth that I'd like to dispel is the fact that wearing gloves will protect you. If you are wearing gloves, but you do not wash your hands, you do not remove them after a period of time, everything you touch and then you touch with your face, you will actually be doing more damage, because without gloves on, you'd wash your hands more often, you would use hand sanitizer or even spray or wipe with an alcohol infused wipe. There are many ways in which to keep our hands clean. Persons who are actually infected are the ones that should wear masks, and the ones that are tending to sick persons would wear gloves and then discard them right away. If you are being given gloves at the job and you're using the gloves from morning until the end of the day, you're not protecting yourself. So please become more aware of normal safety measures. Call CPS. This is the type of information that they are giving you, and our public service announcements, as well as the different information segments on our Facebook page, will give you that information. That is all I have to say at this time. Stay safe, St. Martin. God bless each and every one of us.